How often do we think about an event or an instance in a clear right or wrong ideology? We interpret the world with a black and white lens, but often is it not more of a shade of gray? I found this to be true while studying history at The Ohio State University. Most Americans can tell you that the Civil War was between the North and the South of the U.S., and that we were fighting over the issue of slavery. While this is true, often we tend to forget that not everyone in the North had full support for emancipation and the liberation of slaves. Ohio offers a perfect example of just how divided the nation was on the issue. Ohio was geographically in the North, it fought for the Union, and it was a free state. But with a closer look, we can observe just how much of a swing state Ohio was even 150 years ago. As I have conducted my research, I examined newspapers and their response to the Lincoln administration, emancipation, and the enlisting of African American troops. To my surprise, the state was much divided on all these issues. Republicans in support of Lincoln and his policies, and the Democrats against. Lincoln was faced with the challenge of securing the Union while having to maintain a popular support for the North. That challenge was never more evident than when Lincoln proposed to enlist African American troops. The crisis was ready to challenge these notions and to be a voice of opposition. They spoke out against the use of black troops in an article titled, ironically, "Bravery of the Colored Troops." In this article, the author mocks Republican papers and their support for the colored troops, and claims that if the colored troops make such good soldiers, then why does the government use white boys to fight the war? They also argue that the abolitionists are not fighting for black equality and instead want black superiority. To my surprise, these newspaper articles illustrate just how much prejudice and racism existed even in the North. On the other hand, the Plain Dealer was a popular Republican paper of the time located in Cleveland, Ohio. It was one of the most supportive newspapers of the Lincoln administration. The debate over the enlisting of African American troops grew among the Union as more slaves were freed and the Army was left with more so-called contraband. The Union Army was also experiencing a decline in white volunteers, which contributed to the support for the enlisting of colored men. The newspaper agreed that the Union Army can benefit from the addition of African American men. In one of their articles, the newspaper is excited to declare that the president has announced that he will use black soldiers and that he will stand by his proclamation of freedom that he announced on September 22, 1862. By the end of the Civil War, roughly 179,000 black men served as soldiers in the U.S., and more served in the Navy as well. 40,000 brave African American men fought bravely and gave their lives for the Union cause. In addition to those who served in the military, many played numerous supporting roles in the fight, volunteering in all sorts of positions. It might be surprising for us to read these racist newspaper articles because we have come such a long way today. However, there are still people around the world who are living in poverty and bondage. Like former slaves, these members of society have a lot to offer to our communities and their betterment.